Inside Hutchins State Jail, the hidden side of Texas prisons. Most people think they know what a jail looks like. Concrete walls, steel doors, guards watching every move. But hidden within the vast Texas correctional system is a place many people have never heard of. A place where thousands have entered carrying the weight of criminal convictions, broken lives, addiction, poverty, and bad decisions. A place designed not as a maximum security fortress, but as something far more complicated. This is Hutchins State Jail. And behind these fences lies a world governed by strict schedules, unwritten rules, constant surveillance, and a daily struggle to maintain dignity. Because what happens inside this facility reveals a side of the American justice system few ever see. And some of what former inmates describe may surprise you. Before we begin, subscribe for more documentaries exploring prisons, crime, and the justice system. And comment below where you're watching from. Now let's step beyond the fences of Hutchins State Jail. Because the story starts long before an inmate ever reaches a cell. Texas and the prison machine. Everything about Hutchins State Jail begins with understanding Texas itself. Texas operates one of the largest correctional systems in the United States. For decades, tough sentencing laws, population growth, and aggressive criminal justice policies filled prisons across the state. By the 1990s, officials faced a challenge. Traditional prisons were overcrowded. New facilities needed to be built. But not every offender required placement inside a maximum security penitentiary. State jails emerged as a solution. These institutions were designed to house lower-level felony offenders. The concept sounded straightforward. Provide a structured environment. Maintain discipline. Offer rehabilitation opportunities. Reduce pressure on larger prison units. In reality, things became far more complicated. Because once thousands of people are placed behind fences, regardless of security level, a prison culture inevitably develops. And Hutchins State Jail would become one of the facilities tasked with carrying out that mission. Located just southeast of Dallas, the facility opened during a period when Texas was rapidly expanding its correctional infrastructure. From the outside, it resembles many modern correctional institutions. Perimeter fencing, security checkpoints, housing units, administrative buildings. Nothing extraordinary. But appearances can be deceiving. Because life inside is governed by rules that shape every minute of every day. And for newly arriving inmates, the first few hours can feel overwhelming. What happens next begins at intake. Arrival. The journey often begins before sunrise. An inmate boards a transport vehicle after sentencing or transfer. Personal belongings are limited. Freedom has already disappeared. Now uncertainty takes its place. Many inmates arrive anxious. Some are angry. Others remain silent. For first-time offenders, the experience can feel surreal. Hours earlier they may have been standing before a judge. Now they are approaching fences topped with razor wire. The bus slows. Gates open. The facility comes into view. And reality becomes impossible to ignore. Former inmates often describe arrival as a moment when the outside world suddenly feels very far away. Inside processing areas, staff verify identities. Paperwork is reviewed. Property is cataloged. Rules are explained. Questions are asked. Instructions are repeated. Everything moves according to procedure. The goal is control. Control of movement. Control of information. Control of behavior. Because correctional facilities operate on predictability. Without it, order can quickly break down. New arrivals learn that every action matters. Where they stand. When they speak. How they move. Even simple mistakes can attract unwanted attention. And that lesson becomes increasingly important once they enter the housing units. Because beyond intake lies an environment governed not only by official rules, but by inmate culture. And understanding that culture can mean the difference between fitting in and becoming a target. The first night. Few moments are remembered more vividly than the first night. The sounds come first. Doors opening. Voices echoing. Metal bunks creaking. Televisions playing somewhere in the distance. Footsteps moving through corridors. For someone entering custody for the first time, sleep can be difficult. Everything feels unfamiliar. Every noise seems significant. Every face is unknown. And every inmate is trying to assess the same thing. Who can be trusted? Who should be avoided? Prison culture rewards awareness. People quickly learn to observe before speaking. To watch before acting. To understand the environment before becoming part of it. Because first impressions matter. An inmate who appears weak may attract unwanted attention. An inmate who appears aggressive may create unnecessary conflict. Finding balance becomes essential. Most prisoners discover that respect functions as a form of currency. Not money. Not status. Respect. And once lost, it can be difficult to recover. This unwritten code shapes daily life in ways outsiders rarely understand. But before an inmate learns those rules, they must survive something else. The relentless routine. A day inside Hutchins. Life inside Hutchins State Jail follows a schedule that rarely changes. Consistency is intentional. Correctional systems rely upon routine to maintain order. The day often begins early. Very early. Lights. Announcements. Movement. The facility comes alive. Inmates prepare for count. Count procedures are among the most important functions inside any correctional institution. Staff must know where every inmate is located. Every housing area. Every bunk. Every person. Failure is not an option. Only after counts are completed can the day continue. Breakfast follows. Movement occurs under supervision. Lines form. Instructions are followed. Meals are rarely memorable. They are designed to meet requirements, not expectations. For inmates, food often becomes one of the most discussed topics inside prison walls. Not because it is exceptional, but because it represents one of the few predictable events in the day. After meals come assignments, work details, educational programs, vocational training, facility maintenance. Different inmates spend their time in different ways. Some focus on self-improvement. Some count the days until release. Others simply try to survive another shift in a difficult environment. But beneath this structured routine lies a reality many people never see. Because every prison develops its own social hierarchy. And what happens within that hierarchy can shape an inmate's entire sentence. The invisible hierarchy. Officially, every inmate is subject to the same rules, the same schedules, the same restrictions, the same authority. But inside almost every correctional facility, another system exists beneath the surface. An unofficial hierarchy. It is rarely discussed openly. Yet nearly everyone understands it. The moment a new inmate enters a housing area, they begin reading the room. Who commands respect? Who causes trouble? Who solves disputes? Who should be avoided entirely? These answers are often learned through observation rather than conversation. Experienced inmates understand that prison life is built upon reputation. Some people gain respect because they stay out of trouble. Others because they possess knowledge about prison procedures. Some because they have served long sentences and understand how the system works. And some because they are willing to use intimidation when necessary. The hierarchy constantly shifts. One conflict can change everything. One mistake can alter someone's standing overnight. What makes prison culture unique is that status rarely comes from the outside world. A person's former job, their income, their neighborhood, their education. Much of that loses value behind the fence. Inside, behavior becomes the defining factor. How someone handles pressure, whether they keep their word, how they respond when challenged. Those qualities often determine where they fit within the social structure. And understanding that structure becomes essential for survival. Because one of the first lessons inmates learn is surprisingly simple. Mind your own business. The survival rules. Most prison survival rules never appear in an orientation handbook. They are passed from inmate to inmate. Learned through observation. Sometimes learned the hard way. One of the most important rules is avoiding unnecessary attention. Correctional facilities are crowded environments. Privacy is limited. Personal space is scarce. Tension is always present. In such conditions, small disagreements can escalate quickly. Something as simple as cutting in line, borrowing property without permission, speaking disrespectfully, or interfering in someone else's dispute can create problems that linger for weeks. Former inmates often describe prison as a place where awareness becomes second nature. People learn to pay attention to their surroundings, to understand shifting moods, to recognize signs of conflict before violence occurs. Another unwritten rule involves personal property. Inside jail, possessions carry tremendous importance. Even small items can become valuable. Food purchased through commissary, writing materials, hygiene products, extra clothing. These items often represent comfort, status, or survival. Touching another person's belongings without permission can create immediate tension. The reason is simple. When people have very little, what remains becomes extremely important. Respecting boundaries matters. Breaking them can have consequences. But there is another aspect of prison life that outsiders rarely see. An underground economy operating quietly behind the scenes. And what circulates through that economy can reveal a great deal about life inside Hutchins State Jail. The contraband economy. Every correctional facility operates an official economy. Inmates purchase approved items through commissary. Snacks, soap, stationery, basic comforts. But alongside the official system, unofficial exchanges frequently emerge. This happens in prisons all over the world. Whenever demand exists, people find ways to create value. Inside correctional facilities, commodities become currency. A package of noodles, coffee, candy, postage stamps. Sometimes services become part of the exchange. Haircuts, artwork, legal assistance, writing letters, cleaning tasks. The specific details vary from facility to facility. But the principle remains remarkably consistent. People adapt. Even in confinement. Even under strict supervision. Correctional staff continuously work to prevent prohibited items from entering facilities. Searches occur regularly. Property inspections happen without warning. Mail is monitored according to regulations. Security procedures remain constant. Yet contraband remains a challenge throughout correctional systems nationwide. Cell phones, drugs, improvised weapons. These items threaten safety and order. For staff, stopping contraband becomes an endless battle. For inmates, possession of prohibited items can result in serious disciplinary consequences. And those consequences can dramatically change daily life. Because when rules are broken, punishment follows. And for some inmates, punishment inside jail becomes a punishment within a punishment. Discipline behind the walls. Correctional facilities function through accountability. Without consequences, order becomes difficult to maintain. At Hutchins State Jail, as in correctional institutions across Texas, disciplinary systems exist to address rule violations. The severity of punishment often depends on the offense. Minor violations may result in loss of privileges, restricted recreation, reduced commissary access, additional sanctions. More serious violations can lead to disciplinary housing, sometimes referred to as segregation. For many inmates, segregation represents one of the most difficult experiences inside a correctional facility. Human beings are social creatures. Removing normal interaction can create significant psychological stress. The environment becomes quieter, more restrictive, more isolated. Hours pass slowly. Days blend together. Time itself seems to change. Former inmates frequently describe segregation as a place where routine becomes even more important. Reading, writing, exercise. Anything that helps maintain structure. Anything that keeps the mind occupied. Because isolation affects people differently. Some become reflective. Others become frustrated. Some emerge determined to avoid returning. Others struggle to adjust. But punishment is only one part of maintaining order. The greater challenge often involves preventing violence before it occurs. And that responsibility falls heavily upon correctional officers. The people who work inside. Much of the public conversation surrounding prisons focuses on inmates. Yet thousands of employees enter correctional facilities every day. They walk through the same gates, pass through the same security checkpoints, and spend hours inside environments many people would find intimidating. Correctional officers occupy a unique position. They are neither fully inside prison culture nor completely outside it. Their responsibility is maintaining safety, enforcing rules, preventing violence, managing emergencies, and supervising hundreds of inmates simultaneously. The job demands constant awareness. A disagreement that appears minor can become serious within minutes. A routine day can suddenly change without warning. Many officers describe correctional work as mentally exhausting. Every interaction matters. Every decision carries consequences. Professional boundaries remain essential. Staff must balance authority with fairness, control with communication, firmness with consistency. Most inmates understand that their daily experience can be heavily influenced by the professionalism of staff members. Likewise, officers often recognize that mutual respect contributes significantly to maintaining order. The relationship is complicated, sometimes cooperative, sometimes adversarial, always shaped by the environment itself. And that environment contains a reality many facilities work hard to prevent: violence. Because even lower security institutions are not immune from conflict. And what triggers that conflict is often surprisingly small. When conflict turns violent, popular culture often portrays prisons as places of constant violence. The reality is more nuanced. Most inmates complete their sentences without becoming involved in serious physical confrontations. Most days pass without major incidents. Yet the potential for violence always exists. And everyone knows it. Conflicts emerge for many reasons: disrespect, debt, personal disputes, gang affiliations, misunderstandings, tensions that build gradually before finally erupting. Correctional staff work continuously to identify warning signs. Inmates often do the same. Because nobody benefits when violence occurs. Fights can lead to injuries, disciplinary sanctions, criminal charges, transfers, lost privileges, additional time under stricter supervision. For inmates focused on returning home, violence often represents a setback they cannot afford. But despite the risks, conflicts still happen. The environment itself creates pressure, limited freedom, constant supervision, separation from family, financial stress, uncertain futures. All of these factors contribute to emotional strain. And for some people, that strain becomes difficult to manage. Yet amid these challenges, another side of Hutchins State Jail exists. A side rarely featured in headlines. A side focused on change. Because while incarceration is punishment, many programs are designed with another goal in mind: preparing people for life after release. Whether they succeed is another question entirely. And the answer may determine whether an inmate ever returns. Rehabilitation or revolving door? Every correctional system faces the same fundamental question. What should happen after incarceration? Punishment alone does not guarantee change. Many inmates arrive carrying challenges that began long before their arrest. Addiction, limited education, unemployment, mental health struggles, unstable housing, broken family relationships. If those problems remain unresolved, release may simply become the beginning of another cycle. Facilities like Hutchins State Jail have offered various educational and vocational opportunities intended to address these issues. Programs can provide structure, skills, certifications, or simply a productive way to spend time. For some inmates, these opportunities become turning points. A chance to earn credentials, develop discipline, or create a realistic plan for the future. For others, participation is viewed with skepticism. Years of hardship can make optimism difficult. Trust is not easily rebuilt. Motivation varies from person to person. The reality is that rehabilitation cannot be forced. Resources matter. Programs matter. But individual choices matter too. And eventually, nearly every inmate faces the same moment. The gate opens. The sentence ends. And freedom returns. What happens next may be the most difficult challenge of all. Hutchins State Jail is more than concrete walls and steel doors. For some, it's a place of punishment. For others, it's a chance to start over. But for everyone who passes through its gates, the experience leaves a lasting mark. Behind every cell is a story. Behind every sentence is a life forever changed. Thank you for joining us on this journey inside one of Texas' lesser-known correctional facilities. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and remember, there's always more to the story than what exists behind the bars.